Hello, wildlings. I'm your Creepsmith, and you found my Fear Forge. Lucky you. Tonight's story, The Danger of Soviet Mines, by Harold Kebba. In the winter of 1976, the KGB got interested in the old Gulag Batugichag and its surrounding mines. They promised to hold gold, silver, and perhaps even uranium. The camp had been deserted since 1955 and had not been manned again since. You might have heard of it. What might not be known to you, however, is Solovsk, the small town located near the Gulag. Our geologists, who had been tasked with exploring the mines, were spending their nights in Solovsk as it was located close by. The Petrovs had worked for us before and had sampled some of the loneliest places in the motherland. They both were exceptional in their field of work and had been the first choice when we decided to explore the area and to search for new precious resources. They soon ventured into the old, abandoned mines to take samples. When they did not report back for some time and we got news from the local doctor of something traumatic having happened to them, I was tasked to travel to Solovsk as well, to take care of things. I had not been happy at first, as I did not crave visiting such a place at the edge of the earth, but soon I set out. The town and its surroundings were the most uninviting piece of dirt I have ever seen. The memories of the blackness and desolation of that place still make me shiver nowadays. A run-down room in the local inn had been rented for me, and I quickly tried to settle in. Even on the first day of my investigation, I sensed that my time in Solovsk would not be blessed, and I wished that another had been hired in my stead. But they had chosen me as I was known for my thorough and discreet morale. I hurried to question Mr. and Mrs. Petrov to be able to leave that dump as quickly as possible. As Mrs. Petrov was the only one still sane enough for a longer talk, I chose to deal with her first. We met in a small side room of the doctor's office that had taken them in, and where they would stay until we could arrange for a specialist to take them. The room was meager, and I would have liked to say that it had seen better times, though that would have probably been a lie. It smelled stuffy and a bit rancid, as if decay had settled in over the years. Mrs. Petrov was sitting at a boring wooden table, her dark hair disheveled and her eyes underlined by wrinkles. She immediately started talking after I had finished my introduction. "You know why they sent us down into those tunnels, don't you?" "Of course you do." "Yes." "Well, we have often worked for the government. Some of the most important mining camps have been established because of us. Please, keep that in mind before you judge us. We came here some days ago and immediately started exploring after renting a room. The tunnels in these hills are not old, and they have been driven into the ground by workers not more than 20 years ago. Camp, they call it. But the air told of many lives lost around that place. The rundown barracks, the strange feeling one gets. I felt death resting there, demise. Now you might think that is laughable, but should you decide to venture there, please be careful." "I'm always careful, ma'am. But please, keep talking." "I'm sorry. I just want you to understand how we already felt. How it was possible for my husband to go mad. The tunnels we explored during the first days were quite wide, and the walls were strengthened with wooden beams that had already started to rot. Do you know the smell of musty wood? It is disgusting. We did not find much, some traces of uranium. I just wanted to give up, but my husband would not hear it. He wanted to try one more tunnel, just one more. Why did I agree? Why did I not stop him? She stopped and started to look around the room in confusion. Ma'am, please, focus. Yes, yes. I am sorry. That one shaft, that lonely offside tunnel, was our designated target. It felt different from the others, in a way more barren, more bleak and lifeless. This is why my husband thought it to be the most promising one. He had a good sense for places bearing resources before, so we took our tools and we went inside. I still shake when I think back to that hole and to the freezing winds at that squared entrance to darkness. The air smelled used up and it was bitingly cold, making my lungs hurt with each breath. The hillside that the tunnel was driven into was stony and barren, almost as if nature had barely dared to touch it. The tiny vegetation on it was dead and rotten. Now, this is normally a good sign. Radiation causes similar effects, and yes, the old tribes of these lands did talk about these hills as a place of death, of people and animals getting sick when stepping too close. However, what? However, I am not so sure anymore of radiation being the cause of all these tales. You probably think of me as just a lunatic, but if you had stood in that place yourself... We went on to explore the old mine shaft. It was not wide enough for the both of us to walk side by side, so my husband went in first. The flashlights were not able to pierce the darkness up to more than 30 feet in front of us. The walls were hard and limey, trenched and dry. I am somewhat afraid of close spaces. Not the best condition in my profession. One more reason to be glad for not having to go up front. Our instruments did not show any noteworthy radiation against our hopes. Our spirits were down and the air started to get thinner. I could not see that much ahead, and my husband was in front of me, after all, blocking most of my sight. Then suddenly he stopped, listened. He claimed to have heard something. Then he decided that it had just been the wind wheezing, I guess. I hadn't heard a sound, but I felt a bit sick. Perhaps it was radiation after all? Well, not 10 meters later, my husband stopped once more. He asked me to be silent. We listened into the darkness. I almost expected to hear a giggle or a howl or some other terrible sound, perhaps an animal having gotten lost. But there was nothing. He must have been mistaken. Still, no remarkable readings on the Geiger counter, even a bit less than outside. Probably the rocks were shielding us from the background radiation in the area. Slowly we ventured on, breathing heavily. The air got thinner and thinner. I was freezing, but not only from the outside, also from deep within, from inside my soul. That is the best description I can give you. Your soul was freezing? What is that supposed to mean? I don't know, but that is how it was down there. My husband must have felt something similar, because when I tapped him on the shoulder to show him the readings, he jumped. It was as if he had forgotten that I was behind him. Then he let out a hollow laugh and moved on. I followed him. The darkness in front of us was truly unpleasant. Behind us, the same. Suddenly... What? He screamed. He screamed what? To run, and that it was over there. And what was over there? I didn't see anything. I'm sorry. He panicked, shoved me towards the exit, so I ran, trying not to lose my mind. Do you know what that is like? Him just snapping, just like that? We got to the entrance. We got out of the mine. You know the rest. All right. Do you remember anything else that day? There was a bang. I think the tunnel collapsed behind us. Of course. Thank you very much. The information that I'd gotten out of her was not worth a lot. Probably they had just encountered some stray animal, or perhaps given in to their own fear. The woman had sounded a bit unstable anyway. It would perhaps prove useful to speak with her husband, after all. Talking to Mr. Petrov made me feel uneasy, but I reminded myself to stay professional and to think about everything from a rational perspective. We met in a treatment room, and it was a lot harder to have that conversation. Mr. Petrov seemed to have gone slightly insane, and he did not seem to be able to give any sensible answers to my questions. Again and again he started to ignore me and to talk to himself. Mr. Petrov, you know why I am talking to you, I started. I know why you are here. Because of the deep. The deep? The deep. Inside the hills, inside the ground. I'm here because we were waiting for you and you did not report back to us. Then we got a call from your doctor here. A report? Because of the uranium. I remember. We were supposed to search for, and to find and bring to you the samples, the glowing miracle. If you want to phrase it that way, yes. Your wife has already... Where is she? Is she safe? Is she safe from the deep? No, I don't suppose she is. Nothing is safe from that. Not me, not her, not you. What is this deep? The deep is below. It is below the ground. But it is not going to stay there. Slowly it will surface. It will get to us all. I have seen it down there in the tunnel. But that is what I wanted to talk to you about. Please, if you could focus, tell me what happened. Then he seemed to go completely off the rails, and he looked at me with this piercing gaze, never closing his eyes. That is what you wanted to know? Are you sure? Are you absolutely sure? There is no going back once I have told you. You will only get that knowledge out of your head with a bullet. Well, that is something that I have dealt with before, so please, keep talking. We were just exploring, at least in the beginning. A hole in the hill wanting to be explored, so we did it. We did that. We went inside. Me first, my wife second. I should have known. I should have felt it. She warned me. She told me that she was feeling sick, but we carried on. No radiation to be felt, no sound to be heard. Or was I mistaken? I swear there was nothing in the air, only barely audible. My wife did not hear it. So clueless. Maybe she did not want to hear it. Who knows? We carried on, deeper into the tunnel, into the darkness. What might we discover? Glowing rocks? We went on and on until I heard it again. A whispering breeze, almost like the voice of a child. But I did not see anything. It was too dark. Only darkness in front of me, the eternal blackness. We carried on again, the journey, the search, and then I saw it. He fell silent. His face suddenly showed pain and fear, as if the memories were knives piercing his stomach. And carefully, I asked, was it the deep? He continued to look at me. His eyes seemed to be begging me to end his life. Yes, the deep. In front of me, not 20 meters away, it sat there in the tunnel. At first I did not comprehend what it was. I was seeing what was happening in front of my eyes. It was darkness, but the flashlight should have parted it. The light was eaten. It was eaten by this thing. I thought something was inside of it, inside the blackness, but I must have been mistaken. There was nothing there. I felt like I was gazing into an infinite abyss, and yes, yes, the deep is infinite. You see, the deep is infinite. Infinite. And you ran from it then? Well, of course I ran. I pushed my wife towards the exit because, you see, the deep was slowly closing in on us. It got closer, it ate the tunnel, it ate the light, but I think that it might be here already, here with us. You have to warn them. Perhaps we might still escape it somehow. The deep is already here. Then he just seemed to give up and started to giggle like a madman. I left him and his wife in the care of the local doctor. We had to search the camp and its surroundings, as I reluctantly realized. Then I took some men to the mines, and I found exactly what the Petrovs had told me, a caved-in tunnel. There were some other shafts close by, but nothing noteworthy was inside. Not far away, near a pile of rubble, we found a tramp that might have slept close by. He was brought to the station of the local militia, where I interrogated him. The man was dirty, and he reeked of urine, though he was quite happy to talk to me. Where do you want me to start? Well, you told us that you sometimes sleep near the mines. That is correct. Normally I do not have a good roof above my head, you see, and that is why I go to the mines. There are many tunnels leading down into the ground, and the trenches nearby are roofed as well. The ones that the workers used the carts in long ago. It was easier that way, you know. That said, I would have liked it if those criminals had it a bit harder. I heard of that, yes. Were you staying there during the night to escape from the rain? Exactly, because of the rain. And those damn birds. The mines, they are not the only place where I can get some quietness. I hate those doves and those owls. They do not let you sleep all week. Stupid things. Do you know how annoying cooing can be? Oh, I bet you do. Yes, that happened to me too once or twice when I was camping. But please, back to the mines. You said that you were there, trying to sleep when those two people came running out. Please, tell me about that evening. Try to remember every detail. Of course, of course. I already told you that I was just looking for a quiet place. I knew about the gulag, of course. That had been there shortly before I arrived here, and I heard that they were digging up some uranium. The latter part is only a saying, you see. I don't believe that. Uranium? In these parts? Never. Nowadays they claim to find it everywhere. The area around the mines, it's not that bad. Yeah, there are stories of death and a curse, but what do I know? Sounds made up and superstitious to me. If you ask me, life itself is a damn curse. At least when you are a poor sod without a place to stay. But at least I'm not a damn kulak. Didn't you tell me that you were refusing to go to a shelter? No one's forcing you to sleep out in the open, or am I mistaken? They suck. Who knows what they will do to you in those so-called shelters? If only that cow had not left me, everything would be fine. This is all her fault. I see. Let's say it can get pretty bad then. But now, tell me, the evening. All right. I am sorry. So I was looking for a dry place, and I went to the gulag. You were there. You know that there are several suitable spots, so I look around. The sides of the hills were covered by snow, and the bare trees would not have protected me from the weather. I did not want to get sick after all. Some houses are nearby, if you can even call them that, where the workers had slept, though I thought about resting there, but I did not like those houses. Seemed uninviting, slightly evil, but perhaps that's just because I remembered some of the stories. Stories. What kind of stories? Just some crap. Crap that's told about places like that where people have died. The work here had not been pleasant. Yeah, let's put it that way. Insanity spread among the people, perhaps because their minds started to rot away, or perhaps there was uranium after all, frying their brains. But I think that is not likely. If you are forced to work like that, day after day, year after year, until the end of your life, yeah, you will snap. Well, they got what they deserved, right? At least I am free, and I am not a traitor to the motherland. Oh, sons of a horse. Some people say they did experiments on the inmates, probed their brains after sawing off their skull caps, without anesthesia. Imagine that. I wonder if at least they learned something new. Well, whatever. People are said to have died every day, and that changes a place. Let me tell you that. Yeah, those are the stories. Some killed themselves, some died laughing, hanging was apparently quite the trend, and to all that grisly stuff, add the skull field that the old nomads had created many years before the Gulag had opened its gates. They said that place is the seat of death itself. Take all that together, and I think you understand why I did not want to sleep there. Well, at least not for long. Better not to. And the smell, as if everything was soaked in piss, it was disgusting. So I looked for another place. The entrance to the mines seemed much more inviting. Well, as far as you can call a gaping hole down a snowy hill inviting. It would protect me during the night anyway, so there I lay down in the entrance of one of those tunnels, and there you stayed until those two geologists... Yeah, that was the fourth night of me sleeping there. Nothing much happened in the nights before. Nothing much or nothing. Well, in the third night, I was a bit drunk, but only a bit. Uh-huh. How much? A bottle of vodka. Yes, I know. Don't look at me like that. Can't do anything about that. Makes me feel a bit warmer than a campfire ever could, but I did not have any matches left anyway. I spent all my money on, I get it, on the vodka. I don't want to judge you. I only want to find out what happened. So, what did happen? The thing that was nothing much. I don't know why. I did not want to go deeper into the tunnel. There was this bad inkling, sickness, a feeling of it. It wasn't fear, I think. Probably the vodka. Yes, I'm not afraid of a stupid mind. Well, of course you're not. Yes. But nonetheless, I think there was something there with me. Perhaps an animal? Deeper inside the shaft? Who knows? Wolves can sometimes get pretty lost. Whatever. I stayed at the entrance and did not go further in. Not deeper into that darkness. Why would I? The night was clear. The full moon shone brightly. It was quite pretty, you know. It can be very pretty over there, even when it's day. The sun and the bushes, they cast funny shadows. I slept at the entrance, protected from the snow. Safe. What else could I wish for? It was all right for some days. After that, I planned on getting some food. One of the bakers sometimes lets me have some bread. Did you see anything? Was there more than a suspicion? No, that was it. The next evening, I suddenly heard screams, and when I got up, I could barely see two people running away. They looked as if the devil himself was pursuing them. Then, roaring in that part of the hill, and it crashed down, and BAM! I was shocked, and at first I thought of going into those barracks nearby. I did not want to get crushed, but I deemed it better to be careful because of the thought of the dead workers and the spirits. So since then, I stayed below a big tree. The weather changed for the better after all. I see. So you're telling me that two people ran away. Did they seem sane to you? Can you tell me anything about that? No. Well, yes. The guy was screaming something like, in the blackness, the deep, or something like that, I think. And the woman just seemed to be confused as one is when having just escaped a rock slide. And I don't really know. Thank you. You've been a great help. You may go now. Of course, he had not really helped me at all, but what was I supposed to say to the poor sod? I let him go, and he went back to the mines to look for a new place to sleep, or so I assumed. Perhaps everything would be easier than I thought. A man having gotten exposed to too much radiation, an unfortunate rock slide, nothing more. Back then, I was confident. I was sure that I could soon deal with important things again. I thought of the events as insignificant. I would be proven wrong. A young girl, perhaps 9 years old, was standing at my doorstep the next morning, a little self-made doll in her hands. She nervously introduced herself as Itrushka. I asked her into my room, hesitantly, as I was not good with children and did not have time anyway, but maybe she had heard something. She lived at the edge of town, after all. Okay, you wanted to talk to me? Yes, are you looking for secret things? That is what my mommy said. Everybody talks about you. I have seen something secret and something scary. I see your mother. Okay. What did you see? What was secret and scary? I was playing a bit away from the houses. I always play there. And it was there where I observed something. You need good observations, don't you? Yes, indeed I do. Please tell me, what did you observe? Do you know the trees a bit away from the houses, those old trees that grow everywhere, that grow and bloom in the summer? Yes, I've seen them. I have a hiding place there nearby. It's my special place, so please don't tell anyone about it. Promise? It is my job to keep things secret, so yes, I promise. Now please, tell me more. Usually I am climbing those trees with Andres, but he has the flu. That is why I was alone. I played with my doll, and I sat inside my hiding place, and then I decided to go climbing. And that's why I went to that tree. It's my favorite tree. Suddenly she got calmer. Once her firm manner of speaking faded and her voice began to crack, I did not know what to do, so I offered her some cookies. That seemed to help, at least a bit. Thank you, that is very kind. That tree, my tree, it has a hole. Not just a small hole, but a big one. As big as my hands together. A bird lived in there last summer. Did you know? Have you ever seen something like that? Yes, I have. Maybe a woodpecker made the hole. They do things like that sometimes. That's right. That might be. Or perhaps it was just an old tree and something else happened. I did not really take note of it. At first, I probably only looked for it because I remember the cute little bird from that last summer. I mean, did it fly south? Did it go somewhere else? Did it get eaten? But then I spotted it. Or, in a way, I did not spot it. She fell silent. I started to get nervous. Perhaps I should call her mother. This was her job, but then I stopped. In a way, you didn't spot? What do you mean by that? It was It was just black, very dark, terribly dark, and mean. I was afraid. I still am. But don't tell my mom because she might not let me play by the tree anymore. And that's where my secret place is, see? Don't worry. Don't worry. I will not tell her. Now, the hole was black. In what way? Was it dark? Was it evening? Was it night? No. It was about 3. That was what the clock at the church tower showed. I can already tell the time, see? The sun was shining, but the rays never reached the hole because that part of the tree never looks at the sun, as if light couldn't go there. It can't go everywhere. I couldn't even see the remains of the bird's nest from last summer, and I couldn't see inside the tree at all. Nothing, just darkness, just blackness. I was so terribly afraid. It was weird, and it had no smell. Nothing. Then I just took all of my courage, and I got a bit closer. And I swear, something was inside that darkness, I think. Nothing alive, though. No animal, no plant, but something that could think. I felt like being pulled away by it, as if I could barely hear anything around me because the darkness, it bewitched me. As if the hole got bigger and bigger and bigger. It actually grew? No, that is just what it felt like. I took a pebble and I threw it inside, from far away. It took some time until it hit the hole. I'm not good at throwing things, but then I made it, and do you know what happened then? No. Nothing. And that made me even more afraid. There was no sound. And the pebble didn't bounce back. Scary. It was like the tree ate it. What was the tree bewitched? As if it had eaten the pebble? I ran home. I took a flashlight to make the dark go away, and when I came back, nothing was there anymore. No nest, no pebble, just a cavity in the tree. And then when I went home, and then I went home. I was afraid of the outside. But today, I came here immediately. I ran to you as fast as I could because I knew that you were looking for secrets. And you might be able to help me. She was exhausted, and I called her mother. The woman was quite nervous, as she had a rough idea of my profession. But I hurriedly told her that Etrushka had done nothing wrong. And after they had left, I went into their neighborhood and finally spotted this special tree. At least one thing had not been a lie. A strange, smooth hollow sat directly in the middle of the trunk. For the rest of the day, I started to plan the clearing of the caved-in tunnel, which I had set for the next morning considering the events. It had already gotten very late that night when suddenly a call from the Militsaya reached me. I became somewhat uncomfortable as they told me another half-mad person had come to the station. With worries, I set out and arrived not 10 minutes later. A young woman was sitting in one of the interrogation rooms, visibly shocked and sweating. Under normal circumstances, I would have described her as attractive and pretty, but that crazy look in her eye did not sit well with me at all. Can you help me? You have to help me, please. How? With what? I don't know if it's still there in the train station. Take a deep breath. What's this about the train station? I was coming back to town. I'd been visiting my sister for the last week. During the way back home, there was this feeling, a premonition that something terrible was about to happen, and when I finally left the train, I immediately spotted him, or did I smell him? The stench. The train The train left, and the platforms were drenched in darkness. Most of the lights were broken. He was sitting there, leaning against that old stump of concrete they call a concourse. I knew that he was planning something, that dirty tramp. Did this tramp harass you? No, not at first. He just sat there with his filthy sweater and that fettered hood. Wasn't he freezing? Perhaps he was already dead, killed by the cold, or so I thought. I mean, it's not very warm around this time of year. But he was still alive. Yes, I was just standing there waiting for my taxi. The train station is some distance away from town, so you would not have expected me to walk with all my luggage, would you? No, of course not. Exactly. I was keeping an eye on him, that dirty lout. He was just sitting, leaning against that wall, his head deep in his hood. I could only see his chin from where I was standing. And then he started shaking. Maybe a bad dream. But nothing else happened. Despite that, I was afraid that he would get up and drag me into some bushes. It is known here that young women are sometimes... I understand your reservations. Indeed. I was so afraid. What if he jumped at me? The last rays of light that the old lamps on the ceiling gave off made me feel somewhat uncomfortable, though. Despite that, I started feeling chilly, not because of the temperatures, but because of something growing deep inside me, something that made me feel fear, true fear. It wasn't just a little fright, it was bottomless, infinite fear. I must have scanned my surroundings, as my instinct told me that I might not be alone with this tramp, but there was only the blackness of the night. And then, at this point, she stopped telling her story, and she just looked at the table she was sitting at. He started coughing, and then he almost started to roar. He screamed in terror, the shock almost made me lose my senses, and I nearly fainted. I was afraid of him getting up and running at me, determined to... Again, she stopped. She took a moment to collect herself. But he just sat there. He wasn't moving anymore. Only the hood, this darkness. I could not see the features of a man anymore. No chin, no skin, just darkness. A deep darkness, as if the shadows had swallowed his face, just like that. And then he rose, turned around towards me, just stood there. Oh, Lord, the darkness, like an eternal abyss filled with abominable demons, hypnotizing, evil. Somehow that thing started moving. It took one step, even though I'm sure it did not have a head anymore, not a human one at least. Who knows what wraith was resting under that hood, what terrors hid in its depths. And it took another step toward me. I couldn't stop looking. And another. I had to escape. I had to escape that being. She started hyperventilating. I had a dark suspicion, but I did not tell her what it was. I asked her to calm down and to keep on telling the story. I could not get away. He was blocking my way out of the station. He came closer. He was almost at me. Thinking back to those moments, I finally turned around and ran. I ran away in the other direction. The roads run around the hill, so I managed to get here after all. But you know what? What? In the dark, I was not alone anymore. Not anymore. Not alone anymore. She started dozing off then, right in front of me, right after telling her story. I did not stop her and took some officers of the Militsaya and went to the train station. Our flashlights parted the night, and we were ready to search the surrounding area, but that proved to be unnecessary. Next to the tracks below the dead ceiling lamps, we found the ragged clothes of a man. Their owner, however, was gone. I knew that hooded sweater. I'd seen it not long ago. They belonged to Alexei, the poor soul that we had found near the mines and that I had interrogated before. I don't know what I found more disturbing, the fact that something might have infected him when he returned to the mines in search for a place to sleep against all reason, or the fact that we discovered the belt still buckled. How could he have possibly taken his pants off, undressed at all? We never saw the tramp himself ever again, and the most insane theories of his whereabouts are still keeping me awake at night, even to this day. At that point in time, it started to become apparent that we were not dealing with tall tales, but possibly with some kind of bioweapon. I mean, what else could cause such hallucinations? I was so sure that American agents had smuggled them in and that they had used them to hurt our great country. I immediately called my supervisors, and to my dismay, they decided to observe the situation for a bit longer. Had I been the one making a decision, I would have ended all of this with a clean area bombing. We deemed it unwise to inform the residents of Solovsk that we knew about the situation, that otherwise we would not be able to keep the people in town safe. We had to contain this virus at all costs. So remember to come back next time for the second part of our story. Until then, stay scary. Remember that if you're collecting evidence, it's not a legend any longer. And make the most of your nights.